on my YouTube yet. Hold on. Just checking to make sure we're actually live on YouTube. I know we're live according to this, but you know, gots to be sure. Okay. We are officially live.
Perfect.
Yay! So as always, we'll give people a couple minutes to get here. Better share that out. Forgot to do that part.
All of the calling of the audience.
Yes.
I have to say, I am liking the scheduling feature of YouTube.
Yes, right? I've been enjoying it because like even via StreamYard, you can schedule in advance for live shows, and I really like that. So it looks like some people are popping in. So hi, hello. It might be you and me. Who knows? Say hi when you get here. We're always excited to have you. So April, how is your reading going this week? We'll just chat for a minute while everybody comes.
You know, it has been a little all over the place. I mean, I'm not reading quite as much as I wanted to, but you know, I'm 18, almost 19 volumes into all of the mangas I thought I was going to read.
Well, that's good still.
So it's
there.
There's
everybody. Hi guys. How is everybody? All right.
Perfect.
So we've got Lindsay, we've got Natalie and Mary and January. We got people. So let's go ahead and dive in. Do you want to give the general description of this month's pick, or shall I?
Doesn't matter either way.
Oh, hi, super roommate. So this month we read House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. I'm going to switch this so I feel more like myself. Hold on. There we go. That's better. So yes, House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not going to sneeze. Sorry. I'm a chaotic mess today. I'm sorry. Anyways, April and I both ended up reading this last year and absolutely loving it. So we decided we've been kind of disappointed in the last couple newer picks that we picked for Tell It Again that we thought we would revisit, and a fall gothic favorite for both of us. So in House of Salt and Sorrows, this is essentially a gothic retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and it's got all sorts of fun lore, and I'm going to let April tell you a little more about it.
Okay, so this story mostly centers around Annalee, so I'm glad that she chose just one of the sisters.
It would have been a lot harder to follow more sisters than just the one.
Right, because I mean, because the fact that this is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, you had the possibility of following all 12 of the sisters, and just pre-warning, I'm probably going to jump right into spoilers for all of this.
Yes, we always jump right into spoilers. So if you have not read this yet, you might want to go like check out. I think April did a spoiler-free review last year.
I did.
I don't think I did a dedicated one, but check that out instead because we are spoiler central, and since we both read it twice now, we have lots of thoughts.
Mm-hmm. So this had the possibility of being very chaotic, but since we just follow Annalee and the fact that when we jump right into this story, some of the sisters have already passed, which sets us up for this like very dark and gothic retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. And I think that's why I grasp onto this story so well. Because if you read the original, I mean, any of the original versions of the 12 Dancing Princesses, the concept of these girls either drugging or somehow manipulating these random men, these random princes, to not realize what they're doing is dark in it of itself.
Exactly.
But the fact that Craig kind of like flips it so that there's a little bit more to this curse that these girls are going through, and the fact that she said it in this on this island in this very like nautical setting just added to this like atmosphere. The whole time I was reading this book, I mean, I just pictured like this very damp atmosphere and like all
for
of
me,
fog.
like the picture of like location is like on a bluff on an island in the Highlands. That is exactly what is in my brain, like the Highlands of Scotland, where it's just kind of dreary, overcast all the time, but like still kind of lush and green, but near the water. So you hear the water coming up on the rocks, and like Craig does an amazing job of setting the atmosphere and the tone of this novel. And I think that's why it stands out to me as a retelling, because you either get the tale really good or you get the atmosphere within the tale really well. And I feel like Craig had a great balance of that. I mean, as of right now, Craig is an auto-buy author for me because I really was impressed by those pieces, especially in a debut. In a debut, they're rarely this strong. So that's why I'm like, I'm going to try everything at least that comes out. I might not love everything, but I'm going to at least try them.
Yeah, because I mean, you can definitely tell that she had a connection to this story in some way, and she like really like pushed herself into this story and developing it. And it's funny that you compared it to the Highlands for me, and I think because I am such a Juliette Merlier fan, I was picturing the Irish coastline and all of
and I think they're similar in how they look in a lot of ways. I've been reading lots of Highlander romances lately, so I think that's why my brain went there. So
yeah,
but it's definitely like that vibe. Like we totally both got the same vibe, just different countries.
Very much so. But the fact that this story, I mean, with this curse, first of all, we have all of these characters, which I don't feel like a whole lot of the characters blended too much together, except for the characters she wanted to blend together, like the triplets. The triplets were meant to feel like all of the same girls because that's how they grew up. And so just seeing all of those different characters, and the first time reading through this story, trying to figure out why this curse existed, because you start out at the beginning of the book and people are kind of implying that there's a curse on their family because their mother dies, one of their sisters dies, another of their sister dies. We jump into this story at a funeral.
And it seems like it's going in like age chronological order in a lot of ways, especially in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And at first you don't believe that there's a curse whatsoever on this family. They're just like very unfortunate. And then Verity, the youngest girl, starts to draw pictures of the sisters that she's never met.
Exactly.
And they are the creepiest pictures ever. And that starts down this like
beyond creepy. The descriptions on these pictures that Verity draws, like almost trigger me. Like this book is borderline triggering to my anxiety. Like this is about all I can stand when it comes to like suspenseful kind of things. Anything over that, I would be like freaking out. So this is like walking the line for me.
Yeah, and that's just like something that people do in horror a lot is they take this like very innocent figure and they have it right
next something wildly creepy.
And for just because of those two polar opposites, it always plays so well in stories like this. And she did that in this story, and it was perfect. And at the same time, you become extremely attached to Verity. And it's heartbreaking watching a lot of this stuff happen because she has like no control over anything, but she has to deal with all of this stuff in her head.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Lindsay, by the way, Lindsay's a good friend for those of you who are unaware, and we buddy read often. And she knows that I'm a wimp. So like
it's true.
Like I said, this very much walk the line where it's like some of the scenes I'm like, okay, I gotta speed past this one because this one's harder.
Yeah, because that's what actually surprised me about the fact that you love this story so well. And the creep factor in all of this is just so high.
If I'm in the right mood, I can handle creep. Like,
okay.
It's one of those things where I can't read it constantly because it's just too much for my anxiety. But if there's something good like this out there, I'll crave to read it every so often because I know I'm safe to read it at the same time because I like took that chance. I had gotten an arc of this one. Like, I think it was Natalie, Pages and Panels Natalie. I think I saw her get an arc and I'm like, ooh, 12 Dancing Princesses? That sounds fun. And so I went in blind, not knowing what I was getting into. So,
surprise!
Shayla did something scary. But if I kind of know what to expect, I can better like figure things out that way. But this one just stood out. Like I can almost guarantee it's that gothic setting that makes me okay, because there was so much of the atmosphere of the gothic that I didn't necessarily feel as freaked out because I was already in that gothic kind of headspace, I think.
Makes sense.
So,
I mean, and it does kind of have a little bit, it feels a little bit like Jane Eyre.
Yeah. And I think that's why I did okay. It had some of that general atmosphere. That's why I call it that gothic atmosphere. It's kind of dreary. It's kind of sad already. And then you've got, Verity and her creepiness creeping in here. And, it has its moments. And, we start out with characters dead. So other people dying, I was expecting, and things like that. So shall we talk about our characters?
Yes, we shall.
Yeah, you start.
Okay, so we have Annalee, which she's a good character, but she had her moments of like just pure, why aren't you seeing what's going on around you?
Right. There are moments where her naivete definitely shows. And
yeah,
are you really that blind, honey? Come on.
Yeah, because I mean, I know as a reader we get to see a lot more that's going on than a lot of the characters do, but there were just points where I'm like,
are you really that blind, honey?
Yeah. And then
is this really a plot device here?
Yeah,
I mean, we're working within the confines of a fairy tale. I think Erin A. Craig's, she was a little bit limited in that regard because she had to stay true to the tale in a way. So I think that's why that happened, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment, I guess.
No, not at all. And there were I know during my first read through of this story, when we hit the point where Annalee realizes what the curse is after going to the lighthouse, that she comes back and then all of these other characters are acting out a completely different timeline than what she's used to. And at that point in the story, not knowing what was going to happen, first read through, I'm like, but wait, did this all just happen in her head?
Right. I'm like, wait, land of confusion? What happened?
And when I think an author can do that and make you feel those same things that a character is feeling, I think that is extremely well written.
Agreed.
Because you go into some stories and things like this happen, but you have that moment of like, no, that's not true. I know that's not true. It's just everybody else playing into the chaos that's going on. But here, I legitimately thought for a second that maybe we're wrong about all of this.
Right? A good author makes you question the motivations of the characters. And that's another reason that makes this one stand out to me. In a lot of retellings, I feel like what the main character thinks isn't necessarily challenged in that same way, where it's so blatantly like different, where it's like, oh wait, what? Is everything I thought wrong? And it's just this moment of clarity, and it doesn't happen as much in fairy tales because we know what to expect from fairy tales. And I do think because I'm not quite as familiar with all of the lore around the 12 Dancing Princesses, that this gave me a little more freedom to just kind of enjoy what it was. Where like Beauty and the Beast retellings, I live for those, and I have certain expectations in a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and if my expectations are not met, I don't enjoy. So I think there was a little more freedom for me with this particular one because of that.
Well, and that makes sense. I mean, even if you are familiar with the 12 Dancing Princesses, it's such a short story.
Right.
And it's not as full-bodied as Beauty and the Beast in the first place, that there is a lot of room to play with it. I mean, it's just kind of like The Princess and the Pea or any of those others like paragraph fairy tales.
Right, little short ones where there's a lot to play with.
Exactly.
And I do love the element of the almost like fae quality to half of this story. It just made for such an interesting play within the story because it gives you this extra level of ambiguity, I guess, to what's going on. It's just like, well, they're fae, so I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it leads to like misconceptions and deceit and things. And
well, and it's the fact that Craig made up her own world, and it felt full enough, even though we were only in a tiny section of it.
Right, which is why anything she writes, I'm gonna pick up because I'm pretty sure she might continue to play with fairy tales within this same world she's already created. And I would love to see any tie-ins or crossovers that she may do. Like,
that would be amazing.
There's options for her, and I would live to see it.
Very much so.
Let's talk about, why did his name just leave me? Our male love interest. Why?
Cassius or Fisher? Cassius. Which one? Cassius?
Let's talk about Cassius first, then we'll talk about Fisher. So with Cassius, I mean, you spend half the book wondering if he's good or bad. Mm-hmm. And, on a reread, I think it was easier for me to see the good things that he was doing. And I do think it's because it was a reread and I already knew the answer. And so I'm like, okay, like, did I just miss how good he was before, or did Craig really make me second guess it? And I did miss things the first read through, that she still does a really good job of keeping you guessing until that reveal as to who Cassius really is and Cassius's real motivations. And
right.
It just made for this great thing. I thought his dynamic with her was fantastic. I really liked their dynamic a lot. I liked the just almost like friendship camaraderie before the romantic side of things. Like, it just felt right to me. And the fact that she questioned it, I think, was good too.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's because the way she did Fisher, or what we assumed was Fisher.
Right.
And the fact that Fisher's subtleties in making us question Cassius was done in a way that it felt like Fisher was coming from a place of legitimate warning.
Right. It felt like Fisher was so genuine in those moments. And then you find out Fisher isn't Fisher, and you're like, well, no wonder we were questioning Cassius, because you were with the big bads.
Planting all those seeds, those little seeds of doubt. Mm-hmm. And I think the revealing of Fisher not being Fisher was done really well too.
Oh, so well.
Because I don't think at the beginning I even questioned Fisher.
Nope. I didn't question Fisher at all till like just shortly before that. Let's see, what was it? I think I started to get a weird feeling like one of the times they were going through the door.
Well, and it's
and where he kept pressuring her to go back through the door. That's when I started to question him. It's like, Fisher, what are you doing? This doesn't feel quite right.
Right. And I mean, and you don't start to put those connections really together until that moment when you're like, Fisher was never alive.
Right.
And he's the one who introduced them to all of this dancing.
Right.
And this dancing isn't real. What? And yet somehow up until that moment, we didn't question that.
Right. And I think Lindsay puts it perfectly. It's like, really, for a long time, you really don't question Fisher until he's not okay. But stepmom is pretty easy to pinpoint that she's at least a source of contention within the family, let alone the ultimate big bad.
Yeah, well, and the stepmom is interesting too, because
no, I find her very intriguing.
You had the older sister, the still living older sister. Can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she legitimately does not like stepmom whatsoever. And she has all of these kind of not nice things to say about stepmom, and the fact that maybe their brother was conceived before they were even married, kind of concept. And she's got all of these things she's saying. And then later they turned out to be somewhat true.
Right.
Which is like, oh, well, maybe older sister sees more than...
Older sis is not, like, dumb. Older sis knows what's up.
Yeah, I mean, and the brother was legitimately their brother.
Right.
But the fact is that dad isn't the golden child either.
Right.
And was using the stepmom for his own pleasure until he didn't really want her anymore. And that happened outside of wedlock. And then the curse happened because he did that.
Right, exactly. And it's one of those things where it makes me, I think I got super frustrated with the father, because it's like, all of this is happening because of your selfish butt. And you won't even own up to the fact that you're at fault here. Like,
yeah. But I mean,
that is a pain in the butt.
It's also really weird. This is just like a tangled web of both of them driving me nuts, because mom is sick because she just birthed Faraday and it didn't go very well.
Right.
And because of that, dad is starting to see stepmom in a light he shouldn't be looking at her in.
Agreed.
Which gives her the idea to off mom.
Right.
But of course, then nothing can really happen because of the grieving process, which then escalates everything up until this point of we end up with stepmom putting the curse on the whole family because she wanted to be the wife, to have the son, to be the heir, even though she didn't realize that males aren't the heir.
Right?
I mean, not unless they're firstborn.
Males don't inherit unless they're firstborn.
And I do wonder, this is just like a side tangent, because we have the whole fact that she didn't really word her wish very well to the trickster.
Right.
She wanted to have a son. She didn't clarify she wanted it to be a living son. And then she birthed the trickster's kid.
Right.
I think it would be cool if somehow the trickster's kid played into another story.
Why isn't the trickster's kid Rumpelstiltskin? Right?
I mean, it just
so perfect.
I mean, I don't know.
See it. Or even if the trickster ends up being Rumpelstiltskin, and so this is Rumpelstiltskin's son.
It's true. It's true. I mean, you could do
options. I just want an excuse to read another one for our book club. I think is really what it comes down to. All right. Any other thoughts?
I don't think so. I think I fangirled
enough about this. And just the fact that we love Erin A. Craig. If we could ever pull an Erin A. Craig into the book club again, we're definitely going to, because we both really enjoy their writing. But yeah, I think that is everything I wanted to say about this one. Other than, if you haven't read it, what are you doing here? Go read it.
No. I mean, October is the perfect time to read it.
It's seriously, and I think just reading it in the fall time, not necessarily even October. I think September was actually a really good pick, because it helps get you in that fall kind of spooky, kind of creepy feel. for true spook season. So our next pick, I'm actually really excited about. It's not a fairy tale we've ever done for the book club. And
we've only done it as buddy reads.
We've only done it as a buddy read.
Yeah.
I think just once, or have we done it twice? I think just once.
Just the once.
I think just the once. So we're going to be reading a book called The Shrike and the Shadow. This is by Chantel. I always butcher her last name. I want to say it's Gadry. And then she had a co-author on this one. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to put it in the comments.
Yeah, it's like Gaddory or Dory or...
I want to say Gadry.
Gadry? That would probably make more sense.
You can get this one digitally or physically, so whatever works for you.
This is also a Hansel and Gretel retelling, which is kind of what we were alluding to. We haven't ever done that here. We have read it together once before, but...
Yes. And this one is on the darker side from what I remember her saying about it as she was promoting it. So it's going to be kind of dark and spooky in a forest. Hansel and Gretel, however you want to say it. I think people accept either, and it's all good.
Yeah, but yeah, just depends on what accent you
are. October pick. I'm really excited, and I think it's only like $2 or $3 for the Kindle book. Like, it's not expensive, so it's not like you're going to be spending a ton of money unless you want the physical copy. And I think then it's only like 10 to 15. It's not a crazy expensive one. So. But it is on the newer side, and it is a smaller publishing house, so it's not one that you've probably heard of before. But I've read this author before. They do things really, really well. They have written one of my favorite, like, siren lore books ever. So I trust this author. It's really good, and I'm really excited. This is one I've been meaning to get to for ages, and I just keep putting it off. So I really wanted to take this opportunity to do it for the book club, and I'm so glad April said yes.
I'm up for anything that has even just a tiny little element of weird and creepy. So I wasn't going to say no.
So yeah, really quick, I'm just going to announce this here. April and I were talking before we started. So October will be our last pick for 2020. We tend to take November and December off from the book club just because it's crazy with the holidays and everything. And with 2020 and the crap show that it's been, it might be even wilder than normal. Who knows? So we're just going to always take November and December off from the book club. And then we'll start back up in January. And I'm pretty sure I know what our January pick is going to be already. But we'll talk about it when we're not live and let you guys know for sure as soon as we know. But we kind of have a January tradition almost at this point. So yeah. I'm pretty sure it will be that book. And if you have been around the book club for a long time, you know what series we're talking about. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We love talking about these books with you guys. And it's always so much fun to read together. And yes, so we will see you next month. It'll be on April's channel. I believe it's the 25th. The 25th is what I want to say, because Halloween is on a Saturday. So yes, we'll do the next live show on the 25th at April's channel at our standard time, 4 Central, 3 Mountain. And yeah, thanks for coming by, guys. Make sure you're subscribed to April. She's down in the comments if you're not. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.